Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Amy here. Today we are going to be talking about my most disappointing books or my most disappointing reads of 2022. I have a fairly big list here, so we're going to just get right into it. First up, we have The Other Misses by Mary Kubica. I think why I was most disappointed in this is because it was a little hyped up. I did hear like just good feedback from this book. I heard that it was like one of her good ones, but actually Local Woman Missing was way better than this one. So this one just kind of disappointed me in that aspect, as to it seemed like everyone else was enjoying it and it just really didn't do much for me. I found that I couldn't really get into it, and I remember thinking the majority of the time, like, when is this gonna end? But there were some good twists and turns at the end of the book, even though the entirety of the book was a little bit disappointing. So we have Sadie and her family. Her and her family are moving to a small town in Maine. Her husband's sister passed away and left them a home, as well as custody of her daughter. So lots of change going on for Sadie and her family. And then their new next door neighbor ends up dead, murdered. So Sadie is a prime suspect. So the majority of the book, she was just basically just trying to clear her name. But what I did find interesting about this book is, like, throughout the book, she's told of things that she did, but she doesn't like really remember these things. So that was really kind of what kept me into the story, and I just wanted to find out like what was going on in the end. So like I said, some good twists and turns at the end, but it really just didn't keep my attention throughout the book. And then I wasn't really as into it as everybody else was. So I did listen to this on audio, and the audio was pretty good. Next in my disappointed category is The Bromance Zone by Lauren Blakely. I was really disappointed in this book. So far, I have loved every male romance book that Lauren Blakely has put out for us. But this one, for some reason, I just couldn't click with our two characters here. So we have River and Owen, and we are actually introduced to one of them in the baseball series. What was the first book in that series? Scoring with Him. I'm looking at my bookshelf. Yes, Scoring with Him. Who was it? Was it River or... Okay. Yes, River owns a bar where Grant and Declan from the Men of Summer series hung out a good bit. And then Owen is Grant and Declan's like PR manager. So they kind of meet through Grant and Declan. So I was really kind of like looking forward to their little story, but I don't know, it just something about it, I just didn't find the characters clicked together. And then just the story in general. So the story takes place over the Thanksgiving holidays, and they are driving to a Friendsgiving, and they get stuck in a snowstorm, so they have to spend some time like waiting out the snowstorm in I think it's Declan's parents' cabin somewhere, alone with each other. So, you know, their relationship starts to grow a little bit more during that time. But yeah, it was mostly them driving in a car, and it just to me it just kind of fell short of all of the other male romances that Lauren Blakely has put out and I have enjoyed so much. But yeah, it was still cute, you know, but yeah, I just didn't click with the characters, and I was so looking forward to this because I love the Men of Summer, but it did kind of disappoint me a little bit. Next up, we have The Plot. This is by Jean Hanff Korelitz. I know I'm probably butchering that name. But this was another hyped up book that I was really looking forward to, but it just didn't go anywhere for me. So we have Jake Bonner that we are following throughout this book. He wrote a very good debut first novel, and then he hasn't really been able to write anything after that. Sort of like a one-hit wonder kind of thing. So he ends up teaching like a writing class in like this low-grade program, and in walks a student called Evan Parker. and he claims he has written the plot of all plots, and he claims that he doesn't need this class. So right there, like, okay, so why are you taking the class? Why are you here in the class anyway? There might have been a friend with him, maybe. I don't really remember. I'm trying to go through like my Goodreads reviews and try to remember these things, because I don't remember a lot about any of these books that I'm gonna be talking about. But Jake, our main character, he ends up reading the plot and realizes that yes, it is good, and yes, it will make a great book. And Evan Parker will have a great future. I'm like looking at my Goodreads review. So we have years that have passed, and Jake hears nothing about the book and discovers that Evan Parker is dead. So from there, he does what any respectable author would do about a good plot. He wants to write the story. I felt that this book was very, very slow of like getting to the point. There's inner monologue with Jake about what he's done, and he's just kind of like going back and forth with himself about the book that he has written. I wasn't really crazy about Jake himself as a character. I did, however, like that he was, you know, on this, not like adventure, but he was looking to find out whatever happened to Evan Peters, why, you know, what happened that he died and never ended up writing this book. I did kind of guess the plot a little bit. I do remember that. So yeah, it just wasn't that fascinating to me, except the parts where Jake is looking for Evan and trying to find out what happened to Evan. And I think that's where I figured out the plot. But anyway, I also did listen to this on audio, and I didn't really like the narration at all either. Next up, we have Hijack. This is by Lucy Lennox and May Archer. This is actually the first book in the Lickin' Thicket Horn of Glory series. So this is like a little spin-off from our Lickin' Thicket series by these two authors that I love so much. We do meet our character in the book before, like the last book in the Lickin' Thicket series is called Fools. So this is Carter's story. Carter is like, I can't get my words out. Carter is a cardiologist. So yes, we meet him in Fools. And anyway, in this book, he is going to Venezuela to, you know, do some practicing over there, do some good over there. And his grandfather doesn't want him going alone, so he hires him a bodyguard. So here we have Riggs, and this is where our two characters are going to find a relationship together while they're in Venezuela. What disappointed me about this book is that it didn't take place in Lickin' Thicket, and it just didn't have that Lickin' Thicket vibe that I loved so much. I haven't continued the Horn of Glory series, although I do want to continue it because I do think the next book does take place back in Lickin' Thicket. But this one was kind of more like just overseas sort of capturing kind of thing. I just didn't like the background of their story, even though I did like our two characters. There is also a gaming aspect to this series. I think it's actually called Horn of Glory. So that was a little bit of a fun little thing that was added into the story. I do remember like the ending of the book, like really enjoying the ending of it, because I think we're back in Lickin' Thicket. But yeah, it just kind of lost that fun Lickin' Thicket vibe that the Lickin' Thicket series had. I will continue the series though. This one was read by Michael Dean, so fantastic narration as always by this narrator. And I think that's kind of what kept me really into Carter and Riggs' story. But yeah, it was sort of a letdown. This one does hurt me a little bit. This is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I really wanted to love this book so much because, I mean, Lucy Foley, and plus, look at it, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful cover. I love the pink writing. I did like the whole aspect of it being in Paris. It took place in Paris. And the audiobook was really good. So if you do want to dive into The Paris Apartment, I recommend the audio. For me, the story just kind of fell short. I was just very underwhelmed by it. I was underwhelmed by the characters in the story. I was underwhelmed by the whodunit and the why they did it kind of situation. I don't know. But yeah, just overall just underwhelmed. So we have Jess. Jess is just kind of down on her luck. So she goes to Paris to stay with her stepbrother, Ben. But when she gets there, he is not there. But she does end up meeting all his neighbors, and after that, just lots of strange things starts to happen. All these neighbors are really just messed up. So that was a good fun part of the book, just learning about these neighbors. All very unlikable characters in here. But yeah, once again, it just all kind of fell short for me. Next, we have The Toll by Neil Shusterman. This is the third book in the Scythe. Is that how you say it? Scythe. The Scythe series? I never know how to say that. Anyway, I couldn't get into this one. This one to me was just all over the place. It couldn't hold my attention at all. And we didn't get, in my opinion, we didn't get enough of Citra and Rowan, which to me was what the whole story was about, was these two characters that were training to be sides, right? I still don't know how to say that word. And I really enjoyed that aspect of the first book, and as well as the second book, as Citra and Rowan start to form this relationship. And I was really hoping we get more of that in this book. Now we do, there's a character that we meet, I believe in the second book, Grayson. I do kind of really like his character, so we get a lot of his point of view in here, as well as the Thunderhead. The Thunderhead is almost like the god of this series, I guess. The Thunderhead pretty much like just controls like the rules or what the sides are to do. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's been a while since I've read the first book. Anyway, this one just really didn't do it for me. Like I said, I felt like it was just kind of all over the place. It was trying to, I guess, like wrap up everything, and it was just pulling parts from here. I felt like it was just pulling parts and pieces here and there, and I just couldn't stay focused on what was happening. And again, I really missed Citra and Rowan, and I wanted to know more about them, which we do get them in the story, and we do get, like, I guess, like an ending to their story, but I don't know, maybe I just wasn't satisfied. I don't know. But all in all, I was disappointed in it. This next book I don't want to say too much about because it's the second book in a series, but I was very disappointed in Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. So like I said, this is the second book to Villains, which I really enjoyed. So in this book, I would really have to explain the first book to really give you a good say into this book, but let's just say in the first book, we have these two characters that are experimenting on each other on how they can become extraordinary, basically how to become superheroes. So in the second book, we meet more people like our two characters from the first book, good and bad. It depends on the person they are to whether how they use this power that they have. So in this, once again, this second book in this series was just kind of all over the place. I felt like they were bringing in too many extra people in here, and I couldn't like keep track of what was happening. And I really missed our characters from our first book, even though like I said in the last book I talked about in The Toll, we get a little bit of them, but I mean we do get a good bit of them actually, but we meet so many new people, and so many events are taking place in this book. Like I just felt like their story was like taken away, and I just didn't like the whole outcome of all of it. I did listen to this on audio, and I didn't really care for the narration of this book. So yeah, maybe it would have been a better experience if I would have just physically read it. But anyway, it was a little bit of a disappointment. So I was just reading my my Goodreads review for this book. I'll have to read it for y'all. This is Upgrade by Blake Crouch. This was a huge disappointment for me because I've loved two other books that I've read by him. The other two that I've read by him. The first one was Dark Matter, which is my absolute favorite. And then Recursion. Recursion was very good as well, but Dark Matter, if I had to choose out of those two, was the best out of those. So when we get a new book, I was like, yes. So Blake Crouch sort of writes more of like sci-fi thrillers. So it was very fascinating to me that I really took to Dark Matters the way I did, as well as Recursion. I'm looking over there because they're my Book of the Month copies are over there. So yeah, so when this one was available on Book of the Month, of course I got it, and I was looking so forward to reading this, and I couldn't wait to see what kind of world Blake Crouch was going to create for us in Upgrade. So basically, let me read this to you because I don't remember anything about this book. So I wrote here, we follow Logan. His mother was a super smart scientist looking for ways to better the human race. She implants an upgrade in Logan and his sister. Yeah. Of course things go wrong and Logan is fighting for humanity. And then I put, that's what I got out of it. So I feel like the entirety of the book is like just Logan fighting for this humanity that has possibly been lost because of this upgrade that his mother has implanted in others. Anyway, yeah, it was along the lines of that. The synopsis sounded really good. Yeah, so once again, I was disappointed, but it's Blake Crouch, and of course I'm going to read whatever he decides to put out next, because I was only disappointed one time. Surely it can't happen again. Next is Unwanted by Marley Valentine. Now, when I pulled this up on my Goodreads, it says The Unlucky Ones, #1. So I'm guessing this is part of a series. I didn't continue with the series. Marley Valentine, I kind of discovered this author, this male romance author, I'm pretty sure this past year, or maybe it was year before last. I don't know. The first book I read by Marley Valentine just blew me away. I absolutely loved it. I've read two other books that I've really enjoyed, but then this one came along. This one was released last year in 2022. This cover though, beautiful. So I was really hoping for good things, but in the end, it just didn't hold my attention, and I really couldn't get into our two characters. So we have Arlo and Frankie, who grew up together and were tossed around in a foster care system. They ended up falling in love through this process. Arlo got into drugs, and Frankie felt that in order for Arlo to move on with his life, he had to let him go. Years pass, here we are years later, and they meet up again. And from here, a new story takes place for them, but I don't really remember much about their story. I couldn't get into our two characters. I wanted to so much, but there was just something, I don't know, something missing. I'm not sure what it was, but I did listen to this on audio, and I did really enjoy the narration. But for some reason, just the story just could never grab me. Last, but surely not least, this is Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. Not my favorite by Rachel Hawkins, although I've only read one other book by Rachel Hawkins, which is The Wife Upstairs, and I really did enjoy that book. This one was entertaining, and it had me for a little while. We do have some timelines in this book, so we go from like before and now. I don't think there's like chapters, it's just before or now. Yeah, so we have like before, and then we have a couple things happening, and then we get now, and then we have a couple things happening. So basically we are following, what are their names? I don't even remember. Lux and Nico. So they sail to this island with two other girls for just a little bit of an adventure. This island is known for its history of shipwrecks and murder. Once they get there, they are met with other people who have taken interest in this island as well. But what really didn't do it for me in this story is, like I said, it was entertaining and we had some good parts, we had some boring parts. Once it got to the end, I felt like it was too rushed. Like everything just happened all at once and I was just like, wait, what happened? What's going on? I had a hard time keeping up with it and I still don't really know what happened in the end. I felt like I needed more of that part of the story when it all wrapped up. Like I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, it was entertaining. I did listen to this on audio. I did like the audiobook. But yeah, just kind of, like I said, I think the ending just kind of messed it up for me. Like I just felt like it was just too rushed and I couldn't keep track of what was happening. So that is it for my most disappointing books in the year of 2022. Let me know in the comments, what were your thoughts on these books? Did you like any of these books or did you kind of feel the same way I did about these books? Let me know what your most disappointing books in 2022 were. We'll talk about it in the comments down below. As always, thank y'all so much for watching. I hope you're all doing well out there, having a great new year so far. Hugs from me all around y'all, and I'll see y'all very soon in a new video. Bye y'all.